Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. I'm the Magi, and yes, you read that right. I am going to be taking a downshift this season, and I wanted to take a moment to talk about what exactly that means, both for my play expectations, what I'm expecting it to affect my collection, as well as how I expect it to affect content here on the channel over the next 6 or 7 weeks. And of course, I'd like to address why I am choosing to do so at this time. So stay tuned. But before we get into all that, let's not forget that Ether Drift is a story of speed and competition, sometimes with violent consequences, and of course, it's also a love story. But perhaps most importantly, it's a great little reminder that you need to race right over to my Twitch affiliate channel and subscribe right away, because not only do I stream over there 3 or more times a week on average, there is a 2-week video on demand archive for you, all absolutely free. Link in the description. Now, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, right. Alright, so a couple things I want to address and get out of the way right up front. First off, I was not one of these players that made fun of the Mario Kart set or the Fast and the Furious set or whatever people might want to call this. I also was not one of these people complaining that it did not feel like real Magic. I made every effort to go into this set with an open mind and not criticize it on face value. So with that having been said, why am I taking a downshift for this set? Well, to be perfectly candid, I think the Ether Drift design team sent a product that, well, is kind of half-baked. And I want to make two things clear here as to individuals. I see no fault at all in the execution of the art direction. I think they did a bang-up job there. Vic has no fault due in this set. On the other hand, I think it's time that Mark Rosewater step aside and stop being a lead set designer and settle into a more oversight developmental role. And in particular, most of my grievance comes from the design space of the limited environment. You see, one of the main aspects of the limited design here is supposed to be max speed and the start your engines mechanic. And don't get me wrong, this is not hard to enable. It's not hard to reach max speed. The downside, however, is who cares? It doesn't matter how easy it is to enable or how easy it is to reach, because most of the payoffs for max speed are kind of irrelevant within the limited environment itself, making the whole thing feel really underwhelming. And directly because of this, and quite contrary to what one might expect from a set about speed, this is looking to shape up as one of the slowest formats during the current standard limited environments. And I, for one, didn't see that coming. I don't think anybody really did. And I think, again, that is a direct result of the abrupt failure of the start your engines mechanic. The other aspect comes directly from the direction of Mark Rosewater, who encouraged the design team that he was leading to push vehicles as far as they could without breaking the limited environment. And I got news for you, Mark. You went too far. You done broke it. There is simply too many vehicles. And while I'm showing the token here, which is not the problem, particularly at lower rarities, there are just too many vehicles that don't matter. And it encourages a limited environment where decks are running too many vehicles that they can't crew. And I will give the design team props for their initiative in creating vehicles that had static effects, that did things or affected the board state without the need to become creatures. But it's certainly clear to me that it simply was not enough. Many of the vehicles, again, at that lower design space is just not good enough. I think there's maybe 5 or 6 in commons and uncommons that are worth running as far as actually benefiting your deck, and maybe another 4 or 5 that won't actively hurt your deck. But once you start getting into larger numbers like that, you are really running the risk again of having too many vehicles in your deck and not being able to really support them. And of course, those cards that tend to be good, like the good vehicles, become highly disputed and fought after. These two factors in particular have created a limited environment where there are essentially 3 really good color pairs that again are going to be highly disputed, and the good cards within those are going to be even more highly disputed. There's at least one that I think is nigh unplayable, and I do not say that lightly. And then of course you've got 6 or so tier 2s that just aren't anywhere near the tier 1 expectations and are almost not worth playing. I say almost because, I mean, not everyone can play the top 3. You've got to know when to fold them, as they say. But beyond that, all in all, I'm finding the limited environment to look very unfinished and ultimately unfun. I'll be talking more about the specifics on this in my upcoming draft plan video, which, in case you haven't felt it so far, is going to be a very different plan than the sort of thing I am used to presenting. And of course, that all comes from this downshift need. So how then am I going to be approaching this set? Well, on a very minimal basis, I'm still going to be doing 3 jump-in events, primarily because I want to have enough playable cards to enter the upcoming only midweek Magic event and get those free rares. Secondly, I'm not going to be doing any premier draft of Aether Drift, at least for the foreseeable future. Maybe at some point way out, who knows. But as far as the February and March season, I will be doing 1 quick draft per season. That also means I won't be generating a lot of gems from those quick drafts. In fact, I expect my draft win rates to be even lower than I normally do. That means that I will not be able to afford the Mastery Pass. I actually have enough gems to do it, but since my seasonal play isn't going to support it, I am going to take a pass on the pass. That is also going to contribute to a need for less daily play, since I'm not having to generate as much gold and things like that to draft. I can get by with pretty much 1 win a day. Just hitting that 250, and of course never leaving 3 quests on any given day. And also not planning on buying any packs this time around. Obviously, this is going to have a large anticipated impact on the amount of cards that I collect from Aether Drift. And in fact, I'm only expecting to open about 35 packs. That's the free portion of the Mastery Pass, the 3 freebies at the beginning of the season, and of course 2 packs from each of my 2 drafts. Again, if I've done the math right, that should be about 35 packs. I'm also expecting to pick up about 156 cards from Limited, that being the jump-in and the previously mentioned drafts. And of course, only opening 35 packs means that I can only expect about 6 wild cards, 6 uncommons, and of course 6 higher rarities, probably 5 rare, 1 mythic. And that doesn't give us a whole lot to work with, so we really have to be on our toes and make sure we're getting the cards that we anticipate wanting to play. And while this isn't terribly concerning for me, because say on my primary account I have something like almost 1,100 wildcards at the moment. So I can afford on that account to make some mistakes and need to fill in some things over time. But I can see where a newer free-to-play player does not have that sort of luxury. This is the primary reason that the draft plan for Ether Drift season is going to look very different. So make sure you tune in on that one. Now, I suppose because I've decided to take this downshift, I will be pushing in excess of 60,000 gold into a future season, whether that's going to be the immediately upcoming Tarkir Dragonstorm or some future season to be determined. I just don't know yet, but that is going to be putting a lot of resources into a set that feels more playable to me. But in my mind, the best news is that this really will not change your expectations for content. I still plan on doing all the basic videos that I do each and every season. The only thing that might be a little bit less is the behind the scenes content available to some of my patrons, but I have already made that known to them some time ago. Once again, I want to take a moment just to stress I did not have negative feelings about this, say, prior to preview season or anything like that. I was not a hater of this set, but hey, if those were your feelings, it's okay. Even if I didn't agree with you, you are in fact allowed to feel your feelings. And whether you decide to take a downshift here at Ether Drift or some point in the future, I think this is the right way to do it and still not feel the need to take an entire season off and not gain any resources or anything like that. So whether Ether Drift is your jam or maybe Spider-Man later this year isn't, I hope that you will consider this downshifted version of the plan for those instances. Now, that's it from me. Those are my thoughts on it. But hey, get down in the comments. Let me know what you think. And most importantly, I would like to know how you're feeling about Ether Drift in particular and how you're planning on approaching this current season. And before we go, while every member of this community is important to me, I just wanted to take a moment and give a shout out to those patrons providing financial support and keeping the Stronghold from being a complete financial black hole. And of course, let me leave you with some suggestions for your next step here on the channel.